I just want to point out, Jimmy's going to go bye-bye. Like, they're going to negotiate an exit. He's done. Nobody wants to see his face again back on the air. You have people calling up their affiliates from all over the country. Okay, so Sinclair's like, wait a second, we're pulling this. Nexstar was like, we're pulling this. And I know people, Nexstar's up for some approval on an FCC deal. It doesn't change the fact that what happens when all those people start emailing and calling up the local channel and they're like, what just happened? And they're upset. The affiliates respond to that. I know, I've worked at an affiliate before. When you start getting phone calls in because of something the network did or something you did, they actually pay attention to that. And so it makes all the sense in the world. The country's in a raw point in time, like everybody's grieving, and Jimmy Kimmel tries to go on and promote a whole bunch of misinformation, disinformation. You might be able to get away with that if you're Rachel Maddow on MSNBC. Although that's getting increasingly debatable. We will discuss that. You might be able to get away with it there, right? You can talk about all the crazy things you want to talk about and not be held accountable by the FCC. But if you're on broadcast TV, ladies and gentlemen, you can't have a blatantly political position, even if you think it's funny. You can't be Greg Gutfeld. You can't be the liberal answer to Greg Gutfeld. I mean, Greg knows that, right? Jimmy ought to try and he'd get completely creamed by Greg, but I'm just saying he ought to go up against him on MSNBC, see how that one works out. I know who's going to win that game all day long. But anyway, let's hear from Greg, my former colleague over there at Fox.
Jimmy Kimmel off the air. And now, as much as I'd like to take credit, his demise was caused by another asshole, one named Jimmy Kimmel. He's gone indefinitely, which is like saying Amelia Earhart's flight is delayed. Turns out you can't blindly lie to a million viewers and say Charlie Kirk's killer was MAGA, especially since the shooter appears to be a lefty, meaning he's more in line with Kimmel than Kirk. Perhaps that's why Kimmel said this.
We hit some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it.
Censorship? I don't think so. After all, you do have a right to be wrong, but your boss also has a right to suspend you when you deliberately do so. And Jimmy meant to mislead his viewers at the worst possible time to do it. And the FCC's job is to oversee the three networks, which are finite public goods, so it's a privilege and not a right. And he can always peddle his bile elsewhere.
Absolutely. He can peddle it, as I said, on MSNBC or on a podcast or somewhere else. But you can't actually peddle it on a broadcast network. And that's what the left keeps missing. And by the way, even some conservatives keep missing. I've talked to some very, very smart conservatives, and they're like, oh, this is it's taking it too far. It's taking it too far. And I'm like, here's what you guys don't understand. Like, there's a law in the book, right? Like, you have to serve the community interest. It's not serving the community interest when you're promoting misinformation and disinformation. This is not about free speech. He can go do this show over on cable all day long. But the morons on the left, they either don't understand this or they're manipulating facts to serve them. They want, oh my gosh, this is the end of the First Amendment. No, it's not. No, it's not. He can work at CNN if he wants because, they lie plenty over there. Watch, swallow.
Yeah, Congressman, I see you are wearing a hat. What does that hat say?
You're damn right I am, John. I was a guest on the Jimmy Kimmel show. He, every night, has a right to come into any house that wants to watch and entertain Americans.
No, he doesn't, okay? He doesn't have that right. He absolutely doesn't. Not if he's promoting misinformation, disinformation, or if he's consistently 99.9% of the time going after one person and one person only. If he suffers from massive TDS, he needs to go to CNN or MSNBC or go over to YouTube. I'd like to see that. No one will watch, okay? No one's going to watch him. He's not that funny. Anyway, yeah, I'm not a Jimmy Kimmel fan, but I'm definitely not an Eric Swalwell fan. And I think it's moronic of these people to try and present this as anything other than it is. There are rules. There are. And by the way, Trish Regan got fired. Tucker Carlson got fired. on cable networks where actually, by the way, we had the ability to say whatever we wanted to say because it was cable. But it turns out, you know what? Fox has all those affiliates. So they don't like having this sort of threat, right, of, say, somebody breathing down their back. The Democrats saying, hey, you really shouldn't be doing this, because they have all those regular affiliates. So the pure play cable or the pure play streaming network actually is where you're going to have the most freedom. But we continue on with Fang's BF.
As Greg Gutfeld on Fox has a right to be not funny and go on his network and entertain Americans. It's a part of who we are, John, and frankly, it should shake every American that the President of the United States is out there firing comedians who make fun of him. That is not who we are, and every American should care and stand up to this.
And the CNN guy, who I think is a pretty decent pedigree from some decent schools, he's like, yeah, I mean, like, they're just buying it. They're like little lapdogs. They're soaking it all up instead of saying, well, gee, actually, don't you think, and that guy worked at ABC, so he ought to know this better. Don't you think that broadcast and cable are two totally different animals, and how they're governed is actually extremely different, because the cable companies don't have to go and say, hey, FCC, can we have a broadcast license? Totally different business. And this is what Brandon Carr has been trying to communicate. For whatever reason, the last 10 years, I'm telling you, ever since Donald Trump walked down that elevator, right? Ever since then, they've just gone off their rocker and they've been completely crazed and filled with TDS. And somehow that's been allowed on network television, which is weird. I get it on cable, okay? So you have Fox and Newsmax on one side and CNN and MSNBC on the other. But you can't do that in network TV.
You know, when you look at the conduct that has taken place by Jimmy Kimmel, it appears to be some of the sickest conduct possible. As you've indicated, there are, avenues here for the FCC. So there are some ways in which I need to be a little bit careful, because we could be called ultimately to be a judge on some of these claims that come up. But I don't think this is an isolated incident. I mean, you go back to Representative Swalwell, and emphasizing that Charlie Kirk's killer was a straight white male from a Republican family that voted for Donald Trump. In some quarters, there's a very concerted effort to try to lie to the American people about the nature, as you indicate, of one of the most significant, newsworthy public interest acts that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
And what appears to be an action.
So, in other words, if you're going to lie like that, don't do it on broadcast media.